everybody, Livingston here. Today we're diving into another episode of the Twilight Zone. This time it's Season 2, Episode 25, The Silence. Came out April 27th, 1961, and another episode I haven't seen before. But before we get started, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to continue on this voyage to episode 156 of the Twilight Zone. And before we get started into this episode, let's dive into last week's episode and see what you had to say about episode 24, Rip Van Winkle Caper. Ray Evans says, favorite TV show. It is all about the writing. Telling a story in just 22 minutes, amazing. I agree. It's one of those things about the Twilight Zone that I think is very endearing. It makes me wonder what's going to happen when I hit season 4 and the episodes get longer. I know they get up to about an hour long at that point. So, curious if they're going to keep the same kind of fast pace that each episode has, or if it's going to be more like the Outer Limits in terms of it being kind of slow paced. Even though the stories are still good, I just think that they could have told these stories in half the time for the Outer Limits. But let me know, comment below what you think about that one. Robert Jewell 9727 says, I completely forgot about this episode, and even having seen it before, couldn't remember how it ended. It does remind me of I Shot an Arrow into the Air, both written by Rod, about men isolated in a desert trying to survive. He must have liked the idea of this notion of relying on one another or alternately betraying one another in a singular situation of just trying to survive. There are quite a few episodes like that, very compelling. P.S. My good friend Dorothy is Bernard Herrmann's daughter, and I absolutely adore her. She has some wonderful tales to tell, not only about her father, but about traveling, her parrot, her dog, and her cat. Great reaction. Well, thanks, Robert. I appreciate that. And gotta be awesome to have a friend like that, to have so many stories that they can tell about their father and a lot of the things that they went through just being in the Hollywood scene back in the day. I'm sure there was a lot of interesting stories to tell. Please, by any means, if you want to share a couple of those stories in the next episode in the comments section, I implore you, if it has something to do with the Twilight Zone. I don't want to go too far off topic, but it would be great to hear about maybe what it entailed when it came to this current episode that we did talk about, or we did watch and now we're talking about. But thanks for the comment, really appreciated it. Jonathan Stein says Oscar Beregi, who played Farewell in this episode, would later star in the episode Death's Head Revisited, one of my all-time favorite Twilight Zone episodes. Can't wait to see you react to that one. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Just like most of the episodes in the Twilight Zone, I really enjoy every single one of them. They all seem to be something that I haven't really seen before, or that I have seen, but it's basically movies and TV shows that are based on the Twilight Zone episode that I watched. But it's just crazy how much is actually based on the Twilight Zone alone. P Sparks 3419 says, so that's what our cars are going to look like in 37 years. Awesome episode with a cautionary tale for those who let green cloud their thinking. As for your reaction, Livingston, it was pure gold. Hey, thanks, P Sparks. Really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm not sure if that's going to be cars in the next 37 years. I mean, we're not even coming close to what that looks like now. Usually we kind of evolve into what the next car is going to be. And so far, the only car that seems to be out of this world in terms of design currently is Tesla. And I mean, I'm talking about the truck and the way it's shaped. It's very odd and interesting looking. Not something that I would prefer to go for in terms of body style, but hey, I mean, it's definitely out there. A lot of geometrical shapes in that one. Brandon Florida's 1092 says Forbidden Planet is indeed a wonderful movie, and I do plan on actually sitting down and reacting to it at some point in the future, so look for that. David 9034 says the vehicle the couple is in is from the 1956 movie Forbidden Planet. This is not the last time the Twilight Zone will reuse a prop from that movie. Oh, we've read about Forbidden Planet many times in the past. I mean, maybe at least a dozen times that it has at least popped up in the trivia when it comes to the Twilight Zone episode. So I'm sure a lot of the same movies and stuff that were in the lot around the time that things were being made, I'm sure there was a lot of reuse just so it would save on cost. We still do that today, seeing things from one movie being in a TV show or vice versa. It's just a tried and true way of actually keeping the cost down when it comes to production. Gene Everett 7855 says current gold price is at an all-time high at $25.10. That's $2,510. Yeah, quite a bit of money back then. So whatever, I think back then it was probably like $50 or $60 an ounce. Wasn't near as much as it is now. being $2,500. So if you had a lot of ounces back then, you are sitting on a lot of money now. Charles Stewart 8009 says, "Ha, did you recognize the guy from Maple Street?" Actually, I did not recognize the guy from Maple Street. Robert Schulenberger says, "I'm glad you enjoyed the Rip Van Winkle caper, and if that's the case, I think you'll like The Silence," which we're about to watch. Certainly 2 episodes of The Twilight Zone that I would highly recommend to anyone who's getting into The Twilight Zone. Again, I'm looking forward to seeing how long it'll take for you to figure out what the twist ending is, since you are not bad at figuring that out. I had a feeling the Rip Van Winkle caper might keep you guessing. It definitely did keep me guessing up until about the end. I think I kind of glazed over what the ending might be. Not too far away from the ending, but it was definitely one that I just couldn't figure out from the beginning, like some of the episodes we've been watching. It's a pretty good episode when you can get me all the way to the end and suddenly, boom, you surprise me. And I think it's only happened for a handful of times in The Twilight Zone. Other than that, I can mostly predict what the endings can be about halfway through the episode. But that one, the Rip Van Winkle caper, was definitely one that I was not seeing coming up until maybe the last 5 minutes. So, had me guessing for sure. Akira Kurosawa says, "Twilight Zone." Yep. Welsh, start here, 11:49. I'm not sure what they mean by that. Maybe they mean that's when the episode starts in my video. Because I do a lot of, actually what we're doing now, talking through the comments. Ben Rositas 8068 says, "This episode fails in my opinion for a couple of reasons. One, they tried to make it work by introducing a technology that was simply not possible in 1961. They should have bumped the starting year into the future 20 or so years, say, in order to make it more believable. Two, since little of the then present world is shown, they wouldn't have had to try to spend anything on making the future world. Just a little more effort in the storytelling would have made this a non-issue. However, this is a moot point since the second reason obviates the need for it. Two, economically speaking, what makes gold valuable is not its rarity, even though a lot of people think so. What makes gold valuable as a store of value is its stability versus additional supply. In short, because gold isn't all that good for much, it is very good at accumulating, thereby making it increasingly difficult for new supply to disrupt its value. This is and was evidence in the real-world fact that most of the gold mined in the history of mankind having been mined after World War II. I forget the numbers, but something like 100,000 tons of gold has been mined since the 1950s versus a total known gold supply of approximately 160,000 or so tons. Yet gold values have decreased by 2/3 or anywhere near it, but rather has gone up substantially. But even back then, in the real 1960s, it was known that the gold supply had substantially increased. Being able to manufacture it, therefore, would not have destroyed its value any more than the post-war supply glute. Apparently, economics was not Rod Serling's forte. Sorry for the rant, but this has also gotten under my skin regarding not just this episode, but the general myths surrounding gold role as a store of value. Well, yeah, I mean, I do understand that gold does go up in value and has been going up in value for the last, 60, 70, 80 years. It's been going up for a long period of time. So it is something you could invest in. I'm not sure at any point in the future it's ever going to just go away. I'm pretty sure that we're going to be stuck with gold being something that people keep in order to have an investment in something. It will be something that goes on for a very long time. But if it were to go away, I mean, it would probably be something that happens during a war or during a time where things begin to transition in this world at some point. I just don't know if or when that's ever going to happen in my lifetime or any time in the near future, but who knows? I mean, when it comes to the storytelling, yeah, I can see your point when it comes to the device that they were using to go to sleep and wake up 100 years in the future. Definitely wasn't a technology that was used at that point in time, so it just was kind of strange that they had these things in caves out in the middle of nowhere, which I understood why they're out in the middle of nowhere, but it would have been nice if they kind of dove into the story a little bit about where they came from. Where did that device come from at all? Did the guy invent it? I mean, there could have been at least something that was dropped in that story to at least tell where these pods came from in this science that supposedly was not available in the 1960s. But at the same time, it's also the Twilight Zone, and not everything is as it seems, and it's always a parallel reality to our own in a way when it comes to the Twilight Zone. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't try to read into the Twilight Zone too much. There are lots of episodes where they kind of just said, hey, look, sorry. They just give... I mean, there's been several episodes that I've watched where they don't really give a lot of reasoning as to why certain things are the way they are. One example, that there's a episode with the camera, and it takes a picture of something that happens in the future before it actually happens, showing that these three people can actually see the future if they take the picture the right way, being at a dog race where they're able to bet on these races and make lots of money doing it. But that camera doesn't exist. It's a fantasy. I mean, much like this episode, these capsules are pure fantasy currently. Maybe at some point we'll be able to do like they do and sit in these capsules. And probably the only way we'd be able to do long distance form of space travel is if we were able to sleep hundreds of years and wake up, 1,000 years from now in some other distant galaxy. That's the only reason why I would see that being a thing. But I believe they're trying to work on it, but it's hard to stop the metabolic rate of a human body. And we're still working that way out. There's a lot of movies based on that theory, like Forever Young with Mel Gibson, an early 90s film where he ends up becoming a guinea pig, goes to sleep in this capsule for 6 months, and it turns out something happened and he wakes up 80 years later or something. But anyways, that's all for the comments. Appreciate all the comments that everybody sent in. So let's dive into the episode and see what we're getting into.
Your next stop, the Twilight Zone.
Is Jack Brewer. He's a raucous sort, a little crude, nouveau riche. You know the type. Charlie...
This guy has a lot of words to say.
He walks across the floor to me. He's got the most miserable habit of whispering sotto voce, and I'm supposed to scrape it up for him. I mean, I am supposed to scrape it up, really scooped up off a floor. Well, to make a long story short, he arrives at the busiest time of the morning.
The only thing worse than his talking so much is his transparency. Last week, he asked me for the loan of $250,000.
Did you give it to him?
Is the wager I have in mind legal?
I don't see anything criminal in it, no.
That is exactly what I wanted to hear from you. Would you take this note across the room to...
We got Jonathan Harris back again in another Twilight Zone episode. If you don't remember him, he was in a few episodes ago. He also played Dr. Smith in Lost in
But
Space.
it's the kind of wager that comes without precedent. In just a moment, we'll see the terms of the wager and what young Mr. Tennyson does about it in a very bizarre casino called the Twilight Zone.
Game of chance.
A note for you from Colonel Taylor.
Yeah, well, just put it down somewhere, Franklin.
His instructions are that you read it immediately.
Say what?
Acts like he had seen a ghost.
What is it?
Is this some kind of a joke? I mean...
It is not a joke. I am quite serious. And the wagers take the following form. I will bet him $500,000 that he cannot remain silent here.
Oh, that's...
He will be placed in a room for observation by me or by any one of... He will be furnished with anything he desires by way of diversion, but he will not be able to speak one single word for 12 months in writing, not by voice.
May I ask, what is the reason for this wager?
To shut you up for a year?
I dislike you intensely, Tennyson.
Nice.
Your voice has become intolerable. I sit here each night, and the sound of it makes me wince. So it occurred to me that I'd be willing to offer a large sum of money just to have some quiet. You see, Tennyson, you could not possibly remain silent for a year. It's not in your nature. You're a shallow, talkative, empty-headed ne'er-do-well.
It's a bit of reverse psychology. It definitely works on me when someone says, you can't do it. There's no way you'll be able to do it. You're going to fail at it. I'm going to go, okay, I will show you that I can do it. Being told you're going to fail is definitely enough fire to get somebody going.
I happen to know that you're delivering your nightly financial fol-de-rol because you're in desperate straits, and you do practically anything for money.
I should be forced to invite you out for the things you've said to me. The ground rules here, however, are just a little bit different. I can either ignore you or call your bluff. Well, I choose to do the latter. I accept you.
I mean, 500,000 back then is basically worth 5 million today. Quite a bit.
Where am I to be incarcerated?
Well, in the old game room downstairs. You'll be in a glass-enclosed living room and bedroom. Your every movement will be recorded.
Man, so he's like in a zoo.
You will permit me or any one of us to observe you at any time. You could enter any time after 10 p.m. And so, June the 3rd, 1962, you may leave the room. Assuming, of course, that the impossible happens.
Better have this in writing.
I'll be back tomorrow night. I would like to have that check certified and placed on deposit in my name.
That might be the usual procedure in a fish market or a pawn shop. Not in this club, but not with me. My credit is well known.
Okay, well, will you accept?
You'll have to take my word.
What if you die? You did in writing.
Well, a year from tomorrow night, both. Franklin, get me my coat.
Yes, sir.
Interesting.
I've known Colonel Taylor for a long time. This is not a capricious man. I warn you, he's in deadly earnest.
Do you know my wife, sir? She shops at Tiffany's the way other women enter a supermarket. My miserable misfortune is that I happen to be very much in love with her. I am also money, but it happens to be true.
Probably not a good wife to have if she just sucks the money out of your wallet all the time. There's got to be stipulations. Look, you can buy something every so often for yourself, but within means. Don't break our bank. I guess we're not going to see the wife.
Is he eating well?
Not very much up to a week ago, sir, but he's eating very well now.
Oh, where's an ascot, too?
Quite the contrary, sir. He seems in excellent spirits.
9 weeks. I gave him 4 weeks. Possibly the whole 6 at the outside.
There's got to be a twist at the end of this. I don't think anything bad's going to happen to the guy in the box. I have more concern about the guy putting on the bed.
Will there be anything else, sir?
I'd have, like, phrases pre-written. Thanks. Yes. No. Can you clear your throat? Cough? Or a sneeze? What if you laugh? See, I'd have to have things written down. That it's only talking. The months are flying by. Almost there.
How long are you going to keep on with this prolonged practical joke?
Till June of next year?
4.5 months, not a sound out of him. Won't take it for another month. This I'll guarantee you.
For your sake, I hope that's the case.
He better pay.
You have the money. I think he's going to beat you, Archie. And I think you're going to owe him $500,000.
I would definitely be after him if he does not pay up.
You can hear me, Tennyson, can't you? Matter of fact, you have completely surprised me, Tennyson. I'm prepared to offer you $1,000 and you may walk out today.
$1,000. Oh, 3 months to go. The bet stands. $500,000 or Mrs. Spring.
And young ladies, too. Your wife.
What about her?
She must be lonely for you, Tennyson.
Playing dirty games, huh?
She has been seen with other young men. I happen to know you've written her many notes requesting a visit. She hasn't responded, even to the notes.
Maybe she's not worth it. Hell, we haven't even seen her and we're halfway through the episode.
While you stay here behind glass, the very reason for all your agony may be slipping away from you. Why don't you leave, Tennyson? Why don't you leave right now?
He doesn't want to pay. That's a negative, sir. No.
Your wife. Today is April Fool's Day. Knowing precisely what's happening on the outside. Tennyson, this nonsense must cease. You've got to get out of there. You really do.
He doesn't want to pay.
I might see my way clear to giving you $5,000. That would pay off a lot of your debts.
Just give it 3 more months.
$6,000.
No, I'll take $500,000.
You're an idiot. You know that, Tennyson? Listen, Tennyson, you cannot stay in there 1 more hour.
Don't you do it. Don't you. It's May. That's right.
I wouldn't have believed it. A year in that room.
Is it here?
Out of it.
2 minutes is all the poor devil's got now.
A rather monumental occasion, isn't it, Archie?
Yep.
It's not yet 10 o'clock.
The destruction I'm talking about has already taken place. Things you've done to him, like little asides, innuendos, suggestions, gossip about his wife. But you haven't acted like an honorable man.
Not at all.
But the ugly affair has proved 2 things, hasn't it, Archie? That boy down there is stronger than you gave him credit for.
How could he have done it? How could he?
What are you saying?
It's impossible.
Well, he has won, so you better write that check. Speak your words. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you. Check. He won, fair and square. You're a man of honor.
You have me at a disadvantage, Mr. Tennant. In a rather compromising situation, you forced me into a position of rather distasteful candor. The truth is, I am a fraud. I haven't any money.
So he doesn't have $500,000.
It's true that I have pride.
Man of honor.
Now you have forced me to uncover the situation, proving that of the two of us, you are by far the more substantial.
Wow. So I get respect over money. Super.
Not ask you to suffer my presence any longer.
Tennyson, you can talk. Your time's up.
He doesn't deserve his first words, really.
What is he doing? Why doesn't he talk?
What does it say, Archie?
What did he write?
Why didn't he say something?
What is it?
I knew I would not be able to keep my part of the bargain. So 1 year ago, I had the nerves to my vocal cords severed.
Oh, well, I didn't see that coming. Not at all.
But who discovered somewhat belatedly that gambling can be a most unproductive pursuit, or as in his case, some severed vocal cords. If you don't believe it, ask the croupier.
I tell you what, I did not see that ending coming. Had no clue that that ascot that I pointed out early on in the episode was covering up his scar for something that he couldn't fix. He was forever going to be mute. He had $500,000 that he was going to get at the end of this, which was going to be enough money probably to carry him for the rest of his life. But that means he couldn't say a word for the rest of his life ever again. He could write, and he did the only thing he thought was possible for him to get through an entire year, cutting his cords, his vocal cords, and keeping him from talking, and that's why he couldn't talk. It wasn't that he didn't want to speak. He really wanted to say something when he was being told all those things in that glass case, but he couldn't do it. But at that time, we were thinking that he was just trying to fight the urge to fight and to throw out his voice, but he couldn't do that. So rewatching the episode, if I ever were to do that again and see this for the second time, it would make me wonder like how I would perceive that scene, probably differently, knowing that he has no vocal cords anymore and he can't just throw out what he wants to say. Really disheartening episode in terms of what he had to go through in order just to get that money, and it turns out he got nothing at the end. I think I would ruin the guy who basically said that he would do what he said he was going to do, which he didn't do, and it was kind of sad all in all. But both guys basically came out losers in the end. So that's really surprising ending. I was just kind of shocked that it was vocal cords. So I was told that I was probably going to have a hard time figuring out the ending of this episode. It was between this one and the last one, which was the Rip Van Winkle caper. And I think the silence was so much more in terms of a better ending. So let me know, comment below what you thought of the ending of The Silence. Really like to know your thoughts. And let's dive into some trivia and see what it took to get this episode off the ground. Franchot Tone filmed the club sequences in the early part of production before suffering a facial injury. Even though the left side of his face was swollen, it was decided not to hire a different actor and reshoot the previously filmed scenes, but to film him with only his right side exposed to the camera. Interestingly, it caused Tone's character to be denied eye contact while mocking Sullivan's, which made his character more sinister and added an extra dimension of emotion to the plot. The plot of a man accepting a bet that he could remain isolated for a year and the desperation of the one waiting for the bet to finish was inspired by Anton Chekhov's short story, The Bet. It's the story of possibly the strangest bet ever to occur in the annals of chance. It originally aired on April 28, 1961 on CBS. One of 4 of the Twilight Zone episodes that notably contains no science fiction or fantasy elements. Very true. There was nothing. It could have been something that happened in reality. This episode takes place from June the 2nd, 1961 to June the 3rd, 1962. Liam Sullivan and Jonathan Harris both subsequently appeared together and His Majesty Smith, 1966, in which Sullivan portrayed an alien called Nexus. June the 3rd was the pivotal date in this episode. Cast member Scott Seaton died June the 3rd, 1968, at the age of 97. Huh. Two of the actors in this episode appeared in Star Trek, the original series. Liam Sullivan played Parman in Plato's Children, 1968, and Felix Locker played Mr. Johnson in The Deadly Years, 1967. The starting and ending dates for the bet were June the 3rd, 1961 and June the 3rd, 1962, mere months into the future from when this episode aired, which was Friday, April 28th, 1961. Well, let me know, comment below what you thought of this episode. Next week I will go over your comments and discuss it further. Until next time, see you later.